to say, if you've got pen and paper, because I'm going to go at some speed, there's a lot that I'm going to cover today. A lot of different tools and ideas and ways of approaching branding marketing. So write all your questions down at the end of the talk. Anything you need, let's go through those questions. And also, as Chief Marketing Advisor for Startup Stand Up, if you would like to have an individual meeting and discuss anything at length after the talk today, just let me know, and hopefully I can help you. So the biggest change happening right now in brand communications is a movement from the fundamentals of what, how, features, and benefits to why. And companies that are positioning themselves as purpose-led brands are establishing stronger bonds with their customers, employees, and shareholders. Branding is the ecosystem that gets more people to buy more stuff for more years at a higher price. How did Apple receive a 40% increase in sales across 15 products in 1 year without changing a single attribute of any of those products? They employed Marty Neumeier, one of the older modern masters of design, to rebrand them. This 30-minute talk will teach you about the connection between your brand and your customers, how that connection is formed by cultural factors, and how you can begin the journey to contextualize your brand in a way that will make it sustainable and competitive. I'll demonstrate the importance of developing a purpose-led brand and how your brand promise can lead to a more profitable business. For your business to grow, we need to understand what makes a great brand today. Branding. Branding is difficult. Some people describe it as a person's gut feeling about a product, service, or company. Others say it's what people say when you leave the room. The way someone feels about your brand isn't just about the iconography, the color palette, images, lexical choices, and the syntax of your copywriting. It also has to be culturally coherent to the perspectives within the larger ecosystem where it exists. My definition of branding from a psychological and cultural perspective is the following. Now, bear with me because this is a little academic, but accurate. It is the accumulation of all the operative, overt, and subtle, subconscious signifiers that build an image or lasting impression within the minds of those that encounter the presentation of X. This means that anything and everything that is consumable by the senses of your prospective customers is important and is included in your brand estate, the accumulation of all your controllable assets. The science. If we know a brand is the accumulation of everything from an organization that we can perceive through our senses, then it would be useful to understand how we humans make decisions that lead to our perception of a brand. In Japan, my business partner refers to this perception more viscerally as the brand taste. There are three intersecting components that create the foundation of perception. They are biology, culture, and psychology. Understanding how these factors impact perception can make you more adept at decision-making when it comes to branding and marketing. Have you ever wondered how you make decisions? Would it surprise you to learn that you're more emotionally driven than you imagine? We all make decisions as humans in our limbic system. Why is this important? It is the part of the brain involved in our behavioral and emotional responses, especially when it comes to behaviors we need for survival. feeding, reproduction, caring for the young, and the flight or fight responses. This is why marketing firms sometimes employ psychologists to create messaging and visual devices to elicit fear-based decision-making, to force a particular perspective. This is also why we often decide to buy from brands that are more familiar rather than those that build better products. From the biology of decision-making, we understand that our customers need to feel positive about our brand. The positivity has to be on the prospective customer's terms, meaning that their specific perception style needs to be adhered to. You may have read Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. Carnegie was possibly the greatest salesman in the world at his time, and he knew how people made decisions before we proved it with the scientific data. He stated that people buy with emotion and justify with logic. People decide to buy more on how a product feels rather than its utility. The history. At the beginning of this talk, I stated the biggest change happening right now in brand communications is a movement from the fundamentals of what, how, features, and benefits to why. To understand this change, we need to understand what came before. Business practices and brand perceptions are products of the cultural framework from where they originate. If we understand the history of business culture in Western society, we then understand why branding has had a fixation on the what, features, and benefits until very recently. Adam Smith, the forefather of capitalist thinking and often described as the founding father of economics, in his book, Theory of Moral Sentiments, published in 1759, explained his assumption that humans were self-serving by nature, but that as long as every individual were to seek the fulfillment of their self-interest, emphasizing the economic, the material needs of the whole society would be met. Smith was writing from a position of privilege and omitted the gargantuan gap between cultural status and opportunity. At this point in history, the feeling or taste of a brand was completely situated in the production of the product. But things changed, and how engagement with brands changed due to technology and how we consume information. Consumer psychology. Contemporary, competent marketers often make decisions based on engagement data and A/B testing. This logo received X more interaction than this logo from the same demographic group. Before we begin to put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard, we need to consider the cultural aspects that impact brand perception. Without understanding the environment of where a brand is born, we cannot competently develop visual and linguistic presentations of a company, product, or service that can convey the correct feeling for the consumer. French sociologist Pierre Bourdieu developed the theory of cultural capital. Cultural capital is the accumulation of all the cultural symbols that you present to the world, that communicates to everyone else what your cultural value is. This can include your taste in music, television, clothing, social class, skills, material belongings, economic status, etc. People, particularly during the economic boom in the latter part of the last century, were avid consumers of products because they subconsciously wanted to improve their cultural capital. The culture of materialism taught most people to define who they are and what their value is by what they buy. This watch, car, house tells you X about me and what my value is in society. This is where branding and marketing move more into creating feelings within the consumer as a consequence of ownership rather than utility. Apple was great at this because Apple created a purchasing culture that built a sense of superiority in its consumers. If you didn't own an something, then you were often perceived as a Luddite. Interestingly, iPhone sales have been on the decline for a few years, and this year so far, they took their biggest hit in share price. I believe that this is a result of changing consumer values. When it comes to keeping up with the Joneses mentality, the current major shift is from what I own to what I believe in, and what this product signifies I believe in. Purpose. One of the consequences of the pandemic is that people had time to think and consider not just what they want to own X, but also what this means and what it says about them. In Man's Search for Meaning, Austrian psychiatrist Viktor Frankl proposes that finding and following your purpose should be your primary focus in life, because he believed that it was the secret to survival. I propose that now finding and aligning your company purpose to your branding and marketing is your company's secret to success. Whilst many people claim to be purpose-driven or claim to have a purpose-driven organization, not many people know what the official definition is. It's really simple. It's an organization that is compelled by a vision that is greater than profit. The benefits of being a purposeful brand. If we understand that buying decisions are essentially emotional, and that clearly communicating your purpose can develop a connection with a customer's core values, we can develop a brand that creates a positive emotional impact. So what benefits are there to communicating your purpose and values? Well, the first is brand loyalty. I'm more likely to buy your products and to keep buying them if I feel that we're the same at a deep core level, or that your business somehow represents the best version of me. It feels right. The next is differentiation. It's difficult to copy your purpose and values. And if it's consistent over time, everything your business has said and done will reinforce your brand's values. This ticks the trust box for buying decisions through brand consistency. A third benefit worth mentioning is sustainability. Leading with your purpose is sustainable because your teams and your clients are all singing from the same hymn sheet. You all know why you do what you do. Also, being motivated by outcomes beyond the economic imperative will give you more of an intrinsic purpose in your day-to-day, bringing greater meaning to the work for your colleagues and to your clients. If we create a timeline of brand progression and audience engagement, it begins with, this brand is known to create the most reliable product. Then, this brand creates the product that will make me look good. And now, this product is aligned to my values and helps me to demonstrate cognitive consistency. My thoughts, words, and actions are the same. The impact. The culture has already shifted, and we know this, perhaps to a point where it is already having an impact on organizations that aren't purpose-led brands. Ipsos recently conducted a study into consumer behaviors and brand preferences and found that 70% of respondents said they buy from brands they believe reflect their own principles. Not surprising. 65% of consumers say that they prefer to now buy from purpose-driven brands. This is a huge change and will impact whether someone buys from you and or a competitor. 71% of consumers are more likely to refer to a company if they are purpose-driven. This is a vital factor for scalability. Purpose-driven brands are able to align themselves with their customers' values, enabling them to create emotional engagement in their marketing, leading to customer loyalty, and customer loyalty leads to higher profits. Brand promise. For your business to create an authentic connection with your customers, you need to first establish your brand promise. Without understanding this, it's very hard to develop and communicate a purpose-driven brand. So, what is your brand promise? This is the intersection of three elemental foundation stones within your business. They are your relevant differentiation, what you provide that your competitors do not, your value proposition, the value you provide with your products and services, and your organization's purpose, your why, your raison d'etre. To give some famous examples of value propositions, Uber's the smartest way to get around. Apple iPhone, the experience is the product. And Slack, be more productive at work with less effort. I didn't say many companies were honest about their value propositions. What is your organization's purpose? Do you know? Could you write it down if someone put a gun to your head right now? If you don't know the purpose of your organization, does your organization really stand for anything? And is that going to cut it as people are becoming more purpose-led and values-driven? Bloom's brand ladder. This is very important to explore because it enables you to contextualize the meaning of your brand within your target audience's life. There are 5 rungs on the ladder. Starting from the bottom and climbing to the top, they are attributes. What's unique about your product or service? Functional benefit. What will I get? Emotional benefit. How does this make me feel? Transformational benefit. How does it change my life? And societal benefit. How does it change society? There are always outliers when it comes to consumption habits. So it's important to understand that these are generalizations based on the mass populace. This is a framework based on how most people behave within particular cultures. The first 2 rungs of the ladder would make sense to a brand if you were establishing a business pre the 20th century. The first 3 rungs until the latter half of the 20th century. The 4th rung started to really come into its own in the 1990s, and the 5th hasn't reached its mass adoption point, but within the next 5 years, will be there. Conclusion. We know that the old ways of branding and marketing a business no longer work, and that it's simply, this isn't simply because of the changes in technology, but also psychological and cultural factors. Developing your brand promise and contextualizing your business using the brand ladder will help you to solidify your brand within a framework that is coherent, clear, and consistent. If you want to truly maximize your business's opportunity to grow, for your employees to feel that they have purpose, and for customers to feel represented, aligned, and invested, you need to clearly communicate your purpose. Clearly, the culture of consumption has changed exponentially from the product works to the product makes me feel good to the product demonstrates my inner value system. This is continuing to change at an accelerated pace as people are becoming more introspective and values-led. Rather than following the keeping up with the Joneses paradigm of psychology, you, as leaders, need to understand this change to be able to develop a brand that is competitive and sustainable. Why? Because branding is the ecosystem that gets more people to buy more stuff for more years at a higher price. Thank you very much.
Johnny, thank you. That was fantastic. And I just want to mention to everyone, before I hand it over to questions, that Johnny approached us a few months ago about a wonderful offer to start up to stand-up members. And I'm going to share that by email on Monday with the start up to stand-up members. So that will start going out from Monday or Tuesday of next week. But that was great. Any questions, anyone? Should we collapse the screen, Johnny?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nick.
Yeah, thanks, Johnny. That was awesome. Really enjoyed that. Lots of new stuff and lots of cementing stuff. So I've got a service proposal for a new element of the business, but the customer doesn't know it exists yet. The service exists yet.
Okay.
How if we need to educate a customer first, how do we go about that?
So there's a few different ways of educating a consumer base. I'll give you a real life example of this from this morning, actually. So I was speaking to the head of international brand communications at Toto. Toto are the biggest provider of toilets in Japan, and they also provide lots of cool things in the Middle East and various other places that have more, what would we say, advanced ways of having bathrooms set out and whatnot.
Yep.
And one of the challenges that they have, I mean, they'd like to expand more into Western Europe and the UK, which is where I come in. And most of the populace don't realize that you can have toilets and baths and all the rest of it. They kind of do it all themselves. The first point is visibility.
Yeah.
So there may be tons of people who could really benefit from your service, but if they don't know it exists, then first you need brand awareness. You need to be in front of those people, explaining with complete clarity and in a succinct fashion, because that's really important, what it is. So you need to start with the what, the how, the who, the why. And when I say purpose-led, if you're providing a solution to a problem, attach whatever it is, whatever it is you're proposing to that new audience, not just okay, this thing will give you this benefit, but also this is why I'm doing it.
I think probably you and I need to have a more in-depth conversation, because what we're proposing sounds too good to be true.
Okay. I hear that a lot.
Thank you ever so much.
Thanks, Nick. Phil, you're on mute, mate.
I think Hugh had his hand up before me.
Hugh.
Ask the question.
Phil.
Okay. Thank you, Johnny. I mean, that was really great, and it reiterates lots of stuff that you and I have had a couple of conversations anyway. So great. I feel on message actually, from from hearing what you've got to say. Two related things. One is, there's a business view that you've got to find your own niche. Of customers, that you're offering something that ideally you can monopolize in that niche, as a preference to trying to do everything in the world, although some companies do. And then I think the question that falls out of that is, which purpose do you then address or attack? Because we make assumptions about, generally when we talk about purpose, we think, the world's talking about sustainability, or, and then we get greenwashing and all of that kind of stuff. But there are all sorts of purposes that your niche of people, your customer base, rate as important. And you've got to go and find out what they are, and so it might be sustainability, but it might be mental health or well-being, or something that helps with my social anxiety, or all sorts of things. So what's your view about how you uncover the purpose of the people that you're hoping to market to sell to build your brand for? So.
I've got a really easy answer for this. Yeah. Don't lie.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Don't the purpose comes from you, and don't modify a purpose to suit an audience, because your audience will know. I'll give you an example. Goldman Sachs in 2020 bankrupted a country so that they could create manipulation of political markets in Southeast Asia. Mm. And there was a huge backlash around this. But they're saying they're really helping Black female startups as part of a new community. But there's this cognitive dissonance. So I think, and people know, it's like Nestle. What Nestle did in Africa, killing so many children and young mothers. When they, with the whole breastfeeding scandal, which they did, they manipulated people in a way that killed lots of people. And you're finding that all this stuff, now there's more visibility in the world. People are really starting to learn, oh, actually, this company operates in this way, or this company actually does this. So they're telling me this, but they're doing this. And that cognitive dissonance is now at the forefront of people's minds, particularly as more people become more adept at psychology, understanding themselves, understanding the world around them. There's more information than there ever was before. So I would say, whatever your authentic purpose is, and if it's Goldman Sachs, it's just, mindless profiteering, regardless of the cost. But be honest. Just that's my and the thing with that as well, whatever is most important to you, if you run with that, you will feel more invested, your teams will feel more invested, and your customer will really feel that authenticity as well.
Thanks, Phil. Hugh, then Peter.
Thank you for that. Johnny, I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much indeed. And you've probably heard this many times, but I thought that was a really well-constructed, thought-through presentation, and it made it a hell of a lot simpler for me to basically understand. I've had this thing in the back of my little brain, which is saying things are changing. Got it. Thank you very much indeed. This may sound like a bit of semantics from my perspective, but you use the word benefit at the start of the conversation as a derisory term, then bring in the word of value. First of all, question for you, have you got a definition of what value is? And then you bring back the Bloom ladder, and then you're back into benefits again. Are they interchangeable? Second part of the question.
Sorry, I missed the last bit of that. Did you say that are they interchangeable?
So is benefit and value, those two words, are they interchangeable? Or do you see them as significantly, is there a significant difference between the two?
Yeah, so from a semantic perspective, I would say that, so personally, I would say it depends on your definitions. So for me, if something is a value, that's a very personal thing. And I find that as kind of a benefit as well. So let's say that the value of something, because the value of something could be the benefit, right? If you're saying that this product does X, then that's a benefit, that benefit X, but that is also a value. So I find them quite interchangeable in that respect. But they're both conveying the same point, which is that it's something that gives your customer something that is going to make their life better, make them feel better.
So one of the biggest challenges for us as business people is to define the value we give or are providing a potential stakeholder or a potential customer so that they can recognize it. So they can actually sit there and go, yeah, okay, I can see that. I can either measure it or I can put it in a box, whether it's cultural value, whatever that is. How do you, from a brand perspective, try and get that message across? I got the be real piece, don't lie. I think that's brilliant. This funny thing called ethics coming back into the business world, wonderful. But how do you then get them to better? We talk about a value proposition.
Yeah.
The value proposition is again, from a perception perspective, is going to be different from everybody. Is there a conversation that you have with people about about the value element? And how do you then bring it across?
So our branding team here, when we do the brand consultation process, they ask them those questions of like, well, why do you do this? Why have you started this business? What benefits and what value does it bring to customers? And communicating these things do create a different type of engagement. So you could say that there are benefits to a product, and there's and that those are of value, but it's how much value, how big is the value? So if the value is just the benefits to the product, it's quicker, it's easier, it saves time or something like that. You've then got the other bit, which is, okay, well, that's not that competitive today. So if 10 IT companies are all saying, we can make your broadband faster, right? They're all saying the same thing. Okay, fine. There's that benefit and that value. That's valuable to me. But if they're then going above that and saying, okay, we do what all these other 10 companies do, but there's this added value, this added benefit that you're buying from a company that also is values aligned. We invest in green energy. We plant trees, looking at Jim. We do wonderful things that actually make the world a better place. And that's consistent with your own personal psychology, values, ethics, etc. The value of that now, and we're starting to see this in many brand studies, compounds in not just customer engagement, because people want to know what you stand for. So that added value. But then once they've found a company that stands for the same things they do, then the journey is more invested. So they're going to stay with that customer for a lot longer. And this is what I'm finding time and time again. So I think if you can communicate, yes, the basic benefits that are of value to the customer, that's great. But then it's like okay, what are we about? What do we stand for? And I think that higher connection or deeper connection, depending on how you perceive it, that will get people to really kind of engage with it beyond the product, which we're going into kind of this post product kind of. I don't want to go too metaphysical, but yeah, I think it's that. And going back to your ethics bit, Adam Smith said that businesses should operate within the moral framework of wherever they exist. But we know that governments never put real frameworks around how businesses should really operate. So for me, it's go beyond. So be ethics on your terms and then demonstrate that, because the local culture won't keep you accountable in a true ethical perspective.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hugh. Peter.
Yes, it was an excellent presentation, and it was great to have it explained so simply in a way. There's an awful lot packed into it, and particularly with the ladder at the end, building over history, where we're actually adding more into the message we need to communicate to our potential customers. And this is where I have the difficulty in that, well, two things. One is that because I want to be an ethical company, and but at the same time, I don't want to turn off investors who might just be after money, because they, investors who just after money still count towards getting the company up and running. And for a startup, starting at the bottom, it's how do you get all those 5 messages that have been built up over the centuries into very simple packages to get over to your potential investors and customers. I mean, logo is obviously one thing, mission statement. That's really my difficulty.
So you're talking about a specific communication piece or communication moment, which could be a presentation, it could be an animation, it could be anything that can succinctly explain that. And that's really a branding and marketing piece. So here at Mantra, what we would do is we would work with you. We would kind of say, okay, this is how we deconstruct these things. This is how we can connect them with that particular type of investor in a succinct manner, so that they really understand what your business is about, what it's going to do, how it's going to do it, all that kind of stuff, and why it does what it does. But you're talking about a specific communication moment that is replicable. There are quite a few VC firms out there now that are only wanting to invest in projects that are ethics-led or that have certain amounts of social impact. So I understand what you're saying. Sometimes it feels like you've not got a choice. When I first started Mantra Media, I went to a presentation and met a very well-known owner of a marketing company that's been going for many years. And he was talking about, what he does and all these big brands that they've worked with for like 20 years, etc. And I said, what about the ethical side of things? And his response to me was that, well, when you start in a business, you can't afford to be ethical.
Yeah.
And I was like, and at the time, I was just working independently, consulting with lots of different agencies and stuff. I hadn't formed Mantra Media yet. And I said, I disagree, and left it there. If you look at anything we've written or any of the interviews I've given, like on Good Morning Britain or BBC or wherever over the last 10 years, you'll notice that my message has always been consistent. And now the market's catching up. The market's catching up. So people are going, is there an ethical marketing company that don't try and sell arsenic baby food? Oh yeah, there is. So, the market's catching up. It took people to wake up, but I think now people want to work and they want to know that they're working with a company that's consistently ethical. So I would say, if people are offering you money that also are, selling certain types of, weapons that are doing bad things to people around the world, then probably don't take their money. be very conscious of who you have on board as an investor. Make sure they're a values match, because if they're not a values match, there's tons of stories out there of investors and startup founders where it's not worked out.
Thank you very much. Very good.
Some good questions there. Thanks, Peter. Any last questions for Johnny whilst we're on this morning? No, I think we've exhausted the questions. As I mentioned earlier, Johnny's made a very kind offer gesture to start to stand up members, and we'll start sharing that next week with you guys. So last thing is just say thanks, Johnny. We're going to give you some big ups and some love on LinkedIn later today, because that was extremely valuable for founders, and yeah, brilliant, absolutely brilliant.